Okay, we're going to begin Parshas Beshalach, Alter Rebbe, on page 3 in this pamphlet. A mimer that the Alter Rebbe said, Parshas Beshalach, Yud Gimel Shvat, the year Tovkuf Samach Beis 1802. So in this mimer, the Alter Rebbe will give us insight in the first pasuk of the Parsha, Vahi Beshalach Parei Sa'am, and later on in the Maimer, the Alter Rebbe points out that really in this pasuk we're talking about two different klippas. We're talking about the klippa of Parei, and we're talking about the klippa of Plishtim, and they're two very different, distinct different klippas. The klippa of Parei, the Torah refers to as Beshalach, which represents the outcome or the cause, the process that through Klippas Parei there's something that happens as a result of that Klippa, and that the pasuk describes, and the Alter Rebbe will explain, is in the word Beshalach. That defines what happens as a result of Klippas Parei. And the Klippa of Plishtim, with that, the Torah refers to it as it's something that Hashem didn't want to lead them directly there, and in order to receive from the opposite of the Klippa of Plishtim, Hashem took the long route, not the short route. Almost like is pointed out, like Alter Rebbe says in the introduction of Tanya and the Sharblat, that there's the long short and the short long. In Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is teaching us how to do the long short, because it's something that has a kiyum, something that has it persists, longevity. It's something that it's real. It's something that doesn't dissipate immediately. So that's where the Alter Rebbe is going in the explanation to explain these things. But to that we probably won't get to today, unless Hashem holds back time, like it happens in Yeshua, the Shemesh B'Givon Daim, that the Shemesh just stood in one place and nothing moved. But as we experiencing, the time goes, and we probably won't reach it because it's all the way at the end of the Maimer. But there's a lot of points here that we will get to that the Alter Rebbe addresses, which is a prelude to that, to understanding those points. The first point Alter Rebbe introduces and really elaborates in this Maimer is something that we are familiar with. We also saw it in Parshas Shmos, where he talks about the idea of sowing in the sense to plant in the ground, and the process of planting is, as we know, begashmis, is you take a seed and you put it in the ground. But there's a big difference what you're planting. If you're planting, and this Alter Rebbe doesn't say it clearly, it's brought down in other places in Chassidus, that when you sow into the ground, so you have, when you're sowing wheat, for example, or when you're planting a tree, what is the difference? There's two differences between when you're planting wheat, for example, or other type of grains, and when you're planting a tree. When you're planting wheat, so you're taking the seed that you're taking and planting in the ground is actually food. You're taking something that you could eat, right? Because it's that's the wheat is the seed also, is the food of that plant, and you're taking it and putting it to the ground. So you're actually depriving yourself, right? It's a small amount in kamos, in quantity, but you're depriving yourself of the food that you could be yielding from this kernel, and you're putting it into the ground. That's as opposed to when you're planting a tree, for example, you're not taking a fruit. You're taking a seed. That seed is not edible. Right? So that's one thing. The second thing, which we see also, what are you producing when you plant a seed, when you plant the wheat in the ground? So it produces not the one seed. You're producing many seeds, or many an abundance of that which you planted, as opposed to when you're planting a tree. So you're producing fruit, color, taste. In other words, you're producing something which is shalei lefi erech, completely beyond that which you put into the ground. Number one. Number two is we see a distinction between when you're planting wheat or grain and you're planting a fruit, is that by grain, you don't plant it more than once. You plant it once into the ground and it grows, or doesn't grow. If it doesn't grow, that's the pain that you have, or the anxiety that you have. Is it going to grow? Did I throw away something that I could have used, right? That I could have used and benefited me? Did I throw it away? Did I disregard it? I could have eaten it. You don't know until it actually grows, and a lot of it goes to waste. That it doesn't germinate, it doesn't take root. But you don't find that you replant it. You don't replant the wheat if it doesn't. What's the word? It breaks down. It germinates, but it breaks down. It decomposes in the ground, and it's lost. It's lost. By a tree, you find something else. You find there's a Maimer Chazal that when the Torah talks about Torah, meaning in the Torah Sheba'al Peh, talks about planting. So there's idea of planting it somewhere else. You take the roots of the tree, you plant it somewhere else, that it brings about a shevach, a betterment, you're improving the tree by putting it in a different place. So you have the idea of planting, but in a different area. Those are two differences that we see between the idea of planting wheat or any other type of grain, etc., or by planting a tree. Now, this is negeya, these things, and Alter Rebbe brings out some of them, but it's really negeya, relevant when we talk about the nimshal, because all these points are using the mashal in order to understand the nimshal. What's the nimshal? Where is the beginning of the nimshal? In other words, what are we referring to? So we're referring to two different types of planting. We're referring to planting of elikus in general, meaning godliness in general. That the godliness that Hashem comes into through Seder Ishtalshalos, or what we'd say is the iris of Tayu, right? The sparks of Tayu, as we see many times we talk about, and it gets planted into the world. When it gets planted into the world, it's completely unrecognizable. It's hidden there. It's concealed. It has a very high sherish. It has a very high root. It comes from a very high place. But it gets concealed. It gets hidden. Just as the seed gets hidden in the ground. And then you have another concept which is in the Nimshal, and that is the planting of the Neshama. The Neshama itself is also planted into a body and into this world. There's a big difference when we talk about the iris of Tayu, the nitzitzis of Tayu, to the Neshama. It's two different types of planting. But that is the beginning of the Nimshal to the mashal of planting. It says, regarding the neshama, it says, zaru ala tzaddik. When we talk about this in a spiritual sense, so you have malchus in the world of Atzilus, in Spheres, malchus is referred to as aretz, or malchus is sometimes referred to as a guf, a body, obviously not a physical body, or sometimes it's called an oitzer. It says that Ein Ben David Ba, Mashiach is not going to come until all the neshamas, that are in the Oitzer, which we say is Malchus, all the neshamas that are there are emptied out. In other words, they come down into this world.
What's the Otzer?
Oitzer means a storage house, a place where you store things. In this context, it's a place where the neshamas, before they come into this world, reside. So all those neshamas need to come down into this world. And then Ben David Ba, that's when Mashiach comes. Now we know from Arizal that the neshamas come many times. Right? There's the idea of a Gilgul. Neshama comes back to fix certain things, etc. But it says the neshama. So the neshamas come into Malchus. So he uses the term Zaru ala Tzadik. Tzadik refers to Yisod. Tzadik Yisod Elam. There, and the neshamas come into Malchus. Just like the idea of planting is you're putting a seed in the ground. So here the neshama is coming into the shurish of Yisod, the neshama is coming from Yisod, Tzadik, into Malchus. And then in turn it comes down into this world. And that's the process of Zriya. That's the spiritual idea of Zriya. That's the Nimshal. Okay? That's the general that's the general direction where we're going that the Alter Rebbe is going to elaborate on. Let's see inside. So Hine Al Yisrael beGolus Mitzrayim, regarding Yisrael in Golus Mitzrayim. So again, we said that Parei is a klipa. And Parei sent Ha'am, he sent the nation. But Parei sent them, meaning that through Parei, something happened that this idea of Beshalach, of being sent, something was produced as a result of Parei. So what is Parei? Parei is Golus Mitzrayim. Uksiv uzrati ali ba'aretz. So he brings a Navi that says, that refers to the Yidden in Galus, that the Eibishter Zatia, the Eibishter sowed them. As you can see already, this idea is emerging, the concept of being sown into. So we said this being sown is represented by the neshama coming down into this world. We said it was represented by the Uris, or the Netzotzes of Torah coming into this world, and also it's represented by a Yid, by a Jew, that the neshama is in Galus. It's also the idea of being sown. That what was the purpose? Obviously, you plant. So the Gemara says that the idea is a kor is a measurement. So you are zereya kor. There's a measurement. It's called a base kor. A base kor is an area to where you plant the equivalent, the amount of seeds which are a kor. That's how they measure. In the Mishnah, they refer to a specific area by what it produces, how much seeds you plant. And there was, you can't plant a seed too close together, right? It needs a certain amount of nourishment. So it's called a base kor. Just the simple translation. And so the purpose of planting that amount is that it should produce kama korim. So we need to understand this idea that the concept you're planting and the purpose of the planting is that there should be a tosefes and a ribui that comes about through the planting. So right away the Alter Rebbe goes to the Nimshal. The Nimshal, he goes back, first he starts with the idea, we know that Galus is like planting, but then he goes to the mashal, what happens in the mashal. What happens in the process of planting is this tremendous ribui, both in kamus and in echos. Echos you don't really see. Echos means quality. Kamus means quantity. The quality you see more, for sure, when you're planting a seed of a when you're planting a seed of a tree, right? You don't see a quality really when you're planting a kernel of wheat, because you're producing the same thing. You're just producing a ribui, so you're producing quantity, but not necessarily quality. As opposed to a tree, you see the quantity. But the Alter Rebbe calls it Tosefes and a ribui that comes as a result of galus. So a yid is in galus, and the idea, not as what the conventional idea of galus is, we're in punishment, this is a punishment for the fact that whatever we did. But in actuality, the idea is much deeper than that. Galus is the process through which we're producing away a lot more than the Tosefes or Ribu, just like what happens with planting. So here the Alter Rebbe starts with the Nimshal. Hasine Ksiv, so Kodesh Yisrael Avayir Reishis Tvuaseh. So we see that a Yid is called Reishis Tvuaseh. The first Rashi in Chumash says Bereshis Bara Elikim, right? Bereshis, in the beginning. Bereshis stands for two things that are called Reishis, two things that are called beginnings or first. What is that? Torah and the Yidden. So the Yidden are called Reishis. Where do we see that the Jewish people are referred to as Reishis? This pasuk, the Torah, the Navi, the prophet says, Kodesh Yisrael Avaya Reishis Tvuaseh. They are called the Reishis, the first of Tvuaseh, of his Tavua. Tvuaseh Dafke, his Tavua, the Tavua of Hashem. She Yisrael Nikra Tvuas Havaya. Vahu K'meisha Adam. So again, we're weaving back and forth the mashal, the nimshal. Vahu K'meisha Adam Zeriat Tvua Ala Derech Mashal. B'shvilat Tosefes Sheyitzmach, in the mashal when a person's planting. So it's there for a Tosefes. Tosefes means an additional amount, and as we said, it's both the idea of quantity, quantitatively, and qualitatively. Kach b'ritzoris Hashem. So the Eibishter wanted she'yitisif v'yisrabe gili alikusi ba'olam. This increase is first and foremost when we talk about not for the neshama itself, which is also happens, but first and foremost is in the field, in the earth, in the place that the planting took place, which is in this world. The Eibishter wanted that there should be a Tosefes, an addition, an added amount more than was there. When the Eibishter created the world, so there was a certain amount. The Eibishter created, there was a concealment in the world. The Eibishter wanted, through the planting, that now, just like when you plant, as we said before, so you're making an increase. The world there's an increase of what? Of godliness into the world. And the Alter Rebbe takes it further. Not just, he doesn't remain with that point, but this idea of godliness that is created, that is added into the world, he refers to the Yimalik Kved Havayas Kol Haaretz, that the Kved Hashem, the glory of Hashem, the air of Hashem is filling the whole world. And as another pasuk, it says, the Navi says, "V'nigla kved havaya." So the kved havaya is being revealed, v'ro kol basar, to the point that everyone sees it. All flesh will see it. Zereas Yisrael. So, which means, he sums up, he's Zereas Yisrael, he seeds the Yidden, Sheheim Tvuaseh, that's the Tvua of Hashem. That's the produce of the Eibusha. That's called the Tavua. Tvua means wheat, or produce. What's being yielded? V'shal Yadam Yizgale Kvede Beriba V'Tosefes. That through them, through the Yidden, the kavod of Hashem is now being revealed, as we brought the psukim, the different psukim that illustrate that. And here he brings another pasuk, which brings out even more the idea of Gilui, the revelation that takes place as a result of this Zriya, that takes place as a result of this process. V'zeu Baruch Hashem Elokai Yisrael. What's the meaning of Baruch? Baruch means to increase, an increase amount. It's not the same. It's an increase. Who is adding? Who is making that there's Baruch, that Hashem should be increased, that Hashem should be even more, the Eibishter, the glory of Hashem should be increased, and more recognized, that is Yisrael. Right? That's the Yidden that do that bring that about. Through, like we said, this is the planting. The plantings brings out the Baruch Hashem. The Baruch, the increased amount of godliness. How do we describe the increased amount in this pasuk? The Alter Rebbe says, Mina Olam ve'ada Olam. What is Mina Olam ve'ada Olam? There's two elements. There's two worlds. In this context that we're talking now. The world, one world is called Alma de Iskasya, a world which is concealed. What does it mean it's concealed? In this context, when we mean concealed means that the mitzias that exists, the idea of yesh, the idea of self, is completely absorbed, meaning that it's not what's the reality of this world or this dimension is godliness. It's completely absorbed, meaning there's no feeling, a sense of yesh. That's Alma Diskasya, as we talked many times. Then you have Alma Diskalia, the revealed, in a revealed sense. What does in a revealed sense mean? Where you see that there's an entity which appears to be separate, and that there's different various stages, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, whatever. So Mina Olam. So we want this Baruch Havaya, this increase of revelation, of realization of the Kavod Havaya, is Mina Olam, from the Alma Diskasya, from a place where the concealment, where there's no sense of self, and we want to make that also in Olam, in the revealed world, in a place where self is prevalent, is very much feeling as a separate entity, that there too should be the idea of Alma Diskasya, this realization that everything is completely batal, and how Hashem is really the Metzias, the true Metzias, the true existence. Pirush, the Alter Rebbe says, he brings out, let's see the words of the Alter Rebbe, what we just explained in the pasuk. Shekdei sheyumshach bracha. Again, this is the first word of the pasuk until him. V'teisefes ribui. So bracha, he defines v'teisefes ribui. Begili alikusei, every revelation of godliness, and then olam ad olam me'alma diskasya la'alma disgalya. Who does that? Yisrael, Aidei Yisrael. Who Aidei Yisrael? And that's why in the Tehillim refers to it as Hashem Elikei Yisrael. That through this, Nimtza Ribu Gal Elikus Lamata Kamei Lamaila. So then there's a Ribu Elikus, and an increased amount of godliness that's recognized below in the lower Olam, in what we call Alma Diskalia, just like Alma Disasya. And just like now he goes further and defines for us what different stages of what it means that it's more revealed, and what is the riboy that takes place as a result of Yisrael, which we said is through the process of sowing in the ground. Just like Lamaila, there's what is the truth? What is there? What is prevalent there? What is recognized? That they're mishtachavim to the Eibishter, that they bow to Hashem. In other words, there it's felt that they're bowing. They don't feel themselves as their own entity. Why? Mipnei shem b'teilin the mitzios. Their whole mitzios is batal. Why? Because they recognize this idea of Gila of Eravaya, Kach in Eksiv. So that is what the goal is. Through the Zriya, through this sowing process, that Lo'asid, when Mashiach comes, Ki Ayin Ba'ayin Yiru, that everything will be visible, everything will be recognized. Uchsiv, and it also says in Yeshaya, the Navi describes this phenomenon that takes place as a result of the Gilu Mina Olam V'Ada Olam, the Baruch. What happens? Ubo v'Ma'aris Surim. They come into caves. They run from this great Gilui that takes place, this great realization. So now there's a complete bittul that envelops the world. How does the Navi describe this bittul that they're running and all they're hiding? They're hiding because it's something that is completely beyond what they can handle. Mechilas means tunnels. Mipnei pachad Hashem, because of the pachad of Hashem. That it says that every knee, they're bending to Hashem. In other words, again, describing this bittul that takes place, this gili that takes place, mina olam v'ad olam, through this sowing, the planting process. How do they do this? The pasuk says, Baruch Hashem Elikei Yisrael Min Ha'olam V'ad Olam. But how is it done? Going back to the mashal, right? The mashal and the nimshal. This is done through the Yidden. Hi'esek Hazriya Ba'aretz B'zman HaGolos. This is the Zman HaGolos. Shehu al derech mashal. That what happens B'zman HaGolos? Shezer in Garin Echad U'matzmiach Harbe. You plant a seed and you produce a lot. So you see the Alter Rebbe here alludes already to this idea that we said there's two types of Zriya. He's not just repeating himself. There's two types of Zriya and there's a distinction between them. Chartzen has to do with the grape. So you plant a grape seed. So now you produce an Elon, a complete Elon, Banofim Harbe. In other words, it's so much more than that which was planted. Like it says in the pasuk, the Navi refers to the Yidden in Golos. So it says, nitaitich soirik. What is soirik? Alter Rebbe translates for us. Shuz meira shel gefen. You're planting a zmeira, a branch, kidei lahatzmiach gefen shalim. That through it you're going to produce a gefen shalim, a complete gefen, a complete vine, grapevine. Al pasuk, as Chazal explained, this idea also that the Yidden are referred to, this planting. In other words, we're seeing it from different perspectives. The mashal and the nimshal is not just a mashal that we're using to explain. Also, we're explaining the nimshal, but we see how this is very, very prevalent and very recognized in the words of Chazal from many different and the Nevi'im from many different places, from many different points. This mashal and nimshal idea that they're connected, and this we see in the pasuk V'hine gefen lefanai. This is referring to the Parsha Vayeshev when it's talking about the dream that the butler had. So there it says the pneumistic understanding of that. Chazal connects Yisrael nimshul legefen. He doesn't go into obviously the whole. It's not negeya now, the whole explanation, but just the idea that the Yidden are referred to as a gefen. So in other words, this gefen, this planting, they're a gefen, reishis tuasei, planting that bring Baruch Hashem, that brings an increase. All that happens as a result of the. This is the process of planting, and this is what happens that when a Yid is the purpose of being in Golos is to accomplish that. In Ois Beis, Alter Rebbe continues much in more details in the mashal that also bring out this point, which is negea, of course, in the nimshal, and then, as we said, and then he goes into another point. But the like I said before, they begin the explanation of connecting it to the words of the parsha. Beshalach Parshas is only towards the end of the Maimer, where he talks about the klipa of Pare, and this happens, and this is what Shalach, that through that the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim and brought with them all the nitzotzes, all the sparks from the world of Tayu. That was the result of the planting. And then you have the second part of the pasuk, where at the end of the Maimer, the Alter Rebbe explains the unique aspect of the klipa of Plishtim, what it represents, and how that is connected with that Hashem didn't take him through the land of Plishtim, because it was Karefu, it was very close, and Hashem, if they would have went in that way in Avodas Hashem, they would have lost there's a lot of this uniqueness, this spiritual aspect that it represents in Kedusha that would have been lost as a result of that. That's how the Alter Rebbe ends off the Maimer. Okay.